What is it?
No patch 10.3?
Oh,
Or patch
yeah.
10.3.
Yeah.
Is 10.2 the last major patch of the Dragonflight expansion? And this is a funny one. So Mr. GM interviewed Morgan Day and Patrick Scarborough. And on the topic of, is it the last major patch? Morgan said, nothing new to announce there. What we can say is it's not the end of the story. There is more story to tell after Guardians of the Dream, and we're excited for where that takes us. Now, as is pointed out in this, if you see one of these call-out blocks, this is where author of show notes, producer of our team, and producer of many gameplay-related videos that we do, Dakor has his thought boxes.
God,
sometimes.
Fluff them up any harder here.
Sometimes they're very angry boxes. Sometimes they're just, they're speculation boxes. Let's see what he's got for us in this box. If there were to be a 10.3, then this is a really bad and dumb way of saying so, because it's so vague and weird. Why beat around the bush so much and only say there is more story to tell if there was going to be a 10.3? And now we can get into the whole big question of, is a manuscript a mount? But I think we've already touched on that. So in my head, I do agree with this conclusion here. What Morgan is definitely alluding to is the existence of patch 10.2.5 and 10.2.7 in regards to telling the continued story. And this is where I would think about the roadmap. God, we all love roadmaps in the modern day. So let's think about that roadmap. Right. February, patch 10.2.5, right? Late April, patch 10.2.7 and season 4. Sometime in the summer. Or would you know? Because you could have your 0.2.5, your 0.2.7, maybe even do a 0.2.9. And then a pre-patch, and then the new expansion. The big question, right, is this. Is our new expansion going to slide back into its happy slot of August? Or are they going to continue with the later sort of launch window? Because Legion and Battle for Azeroth pretty much came out like, it was straight 2 years in August. But Shadowlands was delayed. And obviously with Shadowlands being delayed, it's not like they were able to make Dragonflight super, fast in comparison to Shadowlands. So Dragonflight was also comparatively later than what we were used to. So, if they were to kick things back to August, then the idea of getting a 2.5 and then a 2.7 with Season 4 and then like a sort of a pre-patch thing, and then new expansion in August, and then that expansion's 11.0.5 and 11.0.5 by the end of the year. And then 2025 starts with 11.0.7 in February. So there we go. We've worked out World of Warcraft till 2025. You can thank me later. Put it in your diary.
If any of you were able to follow that, please let me know. I started to black out by the time you were talking about 2024. Even though we're...
No, dude, I'm on to 2025.
Oh, yeah.
I could do
right.
2026 right now.
Oh, please don't. Please don't. Yeah. So it's the fun thing, right? Where I try to think about it from two perspectives. I try to think about it from the perspective of what the story doing and what the production doing is kind of the weird thing. Production wise, they've always, like management wise, they've always wanted faster and faster and faster, as Akari said. They've always wanted expansion a year. And that's clearly impossible. But they could do a year and a half, right? They could do a year and a half. No two ways about it. They could do a year and a half, which would leave us in August. And August is Kino expansion launch. At least it was for Legion. That was excellent. So, I'm not really sure. The story stuff was confused me most. But I can completely see a world where it ends up being, hello everyone, it's 10.2. We've done a thing. We've done a thing where the tree has happened and a thing has happened to the tree. And now that's going to be like fairly, I think, obvious. It's going to be fairly obvious. Shadow Flame Tree. And now they could end the story handy enough. Because the whole thing is obviously Farak wants to Shadow Flame the tree and Fear Not doesn't want that, and that's why she defects. All that stuff. So I'm wondering, do they go 10-2 is the big tree stuff happens, we save it. 10-2-5, something's not quite right with the tree. 10.27, something's not right with the tree. 10.3, something wasn't right. No, sorry. 11.0, something wasn't right with that tree. That's what I kind of. That's what I'm like.
Talking about like how smooth it all goes.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that's a pretty smooth way of bringing things forward, because they've never done a nice lead into an expansion before, and I would wonder if they'd maybe try it this time without a 10.3. And I saw was pointed out in chat there that there's something about the way he described this, where he was talking about, you know, with nothing to announce there, Guardians of the Dream, we're talking about that, not the end of the story. That could easily be read as we're talking about 10.2 today, please. I have been given express instructions, I'd say, to not talk about 10.3. Or not talk about anything else after that. Do you want to loop back around to where we started from in this tangent? Do you want to close the loop at long last?
So you mean the Ian and Chris Mattson loop, or do you mean the no patch 10.3 loop?
I mean the no patch 10.3 loop.
So then, there's technically an ahead of the curve mount from Farak. And if this does indeed follow past expansions, it indicates that he is the big final boss. Matt then could go on a 50-minute talk about the sort of classification problem between a Drake manuscript and a mount in your mount journal. And I'm sure that would be a fantastic 50 minutes. I implore you all to imagine that 50 minutes. Now just refresh and give us 50 minutes worth of ads. And now then, Matt, let's go to the rest of the story.
How dare you? I had prepared such a spiel about how important classification is. And I was even going to use it in a relatable way, which is the genres of video games and music. I wasn't actually. I've prepared nothing. I just really think genre categorization is extremely important and people should do it better. And Elden Ring's not a roguelike Steam!
You know, it's funny. I think one of the things that damages our society the most is the incessant need for subdivision.
Oh yeah, categorizing everything reduces everything to... Basically, the scientific method ruined the soul. But yes.
There we go. I think that subdivision is something that can be very easily used to weaponize things against each other, when actually those people probably have more in common than they think. Ooh, but anyway, that's not what this podcast is about.
Yeah, it's like the difference between, you're like, well, what's the difference between like prog metal and, you know, post-hardcore? And you're like, well, there's a lot actually, but then you start to go, well, what about melodic prog metal? And you're like, well, what does that mean? What? I'm sure someone with, musical knowledge will be able to distill things. And you go, what if it's just cool music though? But then that's not useful. So you have to find something in the middle. But yes.
For some data mined info. Oh, look, it's keyboard turn. And Marleman, resident data miners. Data mining. Man, data mining's fun.
The results of it are fun.
The
process, or just look around stuff, yeah.
See, there's a bit of me that, like, I always used to enjoy, like, developing tools and things. The road not taken. So what do we got here? There are dragon races indicated in scene scripts for 10.2, 10.2.5, and 11.0, but no indication for a 10.2.7 or a 10.3.0.
Fascinating. I said that really flat. Actually fascinating, that is.
Marleman has added some context. Worth adding the context. These have been in the files, since 10.05, save from 11.0, which is from 10.1.5. So this is only indicative of the plan. As of January, stuff could shift around a bit. As an example, new player experience scenes are for 8.3.5, but didn't ship until later. True. Which is to say...
Interesting.
What makes it into a game build and what makes it into the thing that you can play are often very different.
And it doesn't always follow any rhyme or any sort of reason or anything at all. It's all just, what's happening?
You have massive amounts of parallelization and, at the end of the day, what's in the game build can... There's probably things that make it in there that are just an indication of the production process more than they are an indication of anything else.
Yes. So I think to tie a bow on the no 10.3 thing, I have no idea, but there's a lot more evidence pointing towards no 10.3 than there is pointing towards one existing.
I agree.
But there's also the whole historical thing of, they only didn't do it 0.3 once, and that was because Shadowlands, which was a nightmare. And clearly they didn't want to do that. But there's also some story stuff like, you could do a 10-2-5 and a 10-2-7 that's in the aftermath of the tree, and then do something else, because we have wrapped up all of the stories of the Dragonflights, believe it or not. Because that's one thing that I felt like I got shot in the head, actually, whenever I watched the Wowcast. Because Anne Stickney said something along the lines of, either we've wrapped up or we're wrapping up the Bronze Dragonflight story, and I think I screamed.
Yeah, this.
Because I did a lot of screaming. I was sitting beside a window, so I'm sure everyone out that direction was like, why is that dude lost his mind? But
I was almost waiting for a knock on the door from the police, just being like, hello, has something bad happened here?
yes, something bad's happened. And that made me think, because we had all of that talk about the Infinite, and it was the dawn of the Infinite. Was that like a weird, well, how did they dawn? And then did we dawn them and then dusk them in the same time? That's a bit weird, interesting. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Was that like a fake out because Eternus hasn't been back? That kind of stuff. And then I didn't do it, but I watched a couple of people do it on Discord, the new quest with Eternus.
Mm-hmm.
And that, plus the context of her saying wrapped up, makes me think that the Bronze Dragonflight story is actually a big can kicked very far down the road.
Yeah. At one point, I know we were discussing about what we just called, I think it's like what we called Denuser cans. Just because it was all big cosmic force related stuff, that's really just rummaging around the bowels of the lore, versus sort of a Matson style, big, cool explosions, freedom, metal, Alliance Horde, which is, I assume the sort of rough order of the emotions that will happen whenever Metzen gets on stage at BlizzCon. So yeah, we were kind of wondering, like, because it does feel odd that they would wrap it up like that and wrap it up so quickly. And even with some of that, like, I don't want to say it's like the dialogue's hokey, but there's definitely some iffy logic.
There's iffy logic all over the place,
yeah.
but they have been able to pull it in a direction that Keyboard Turn just pointed out that exactly what I was thinking, which is, I guess this is spoilers for the No Limits quest with Eternus, but it's not really a big deal. I'll avoid kind of spoiling because I don't even want to explain why it's dumb, because it's really, basically Eternus shows Nosdormu something. Eternus shows Nosdormu something, and then Nosdormu proves Eternus wrong, and then says actually she was right the whole time, which felt really confusing in a way. And it didn't really match up. But the point of how that actually went was, how do I exactly summarize this very quickly? So Nosdormu didn't want to become Merzont, and he was depressed.
Yes.
He was Depresso Will Smith Dragon Man. And then Chromie was his quirky, plucky little friend that promised to get him out of depression. And she did that. She did that through changing the timeline. Because the timeline that we went for was the one where we stopped Eridicron, but she changed the timeline to stop Merzon's rise instead at the Hand of Deus. And then that was like, okay, and then Nosdormu didn't mention that at all. He was like, I'm no depressed anymore. Thanks for lifting my depression, Chromie. Please hug my ankle. And you went, sweet, perfect, nice emotional resolution and stuff. But then, ultimately, then Nosdormu goes, and the whole spiel of Eternus is... She wants to change. The reason she's an Infinite is because she wants to change something that she didn't like happening. And you're like, you know what? Fair enough. That's the whole point of time stuff. Then what happened was it was basically Eternus was shown, and it was straight up, I think, mostly the idea of a canon event from Spider-Verse Ripped, which was like kind of Destiny will always make this happen or something. This stuff happens for a reason, so you can't alter it. And then it turned out that the thing that happened to Eternus's sister was actually for good reason. And then Nosdormu is like, I've learned recently that if you have compassion, it's fine to change the past. It may be fine to change the events sometime. And then I went, what? That's not your job. And at no point did you ever say, I've changed my mind to what my job is. He didn't get all the bronze in and go, right, lads, actually, new orders from up top, which is me, by the way. Change the timeline all you want. Someone die, make you sad, changey way. So that's not how that went.
Changey way.
That didn't happen, so it was really confusing. But then, as Keyboard Turn was saying, it's like, it feels like that was a gradual change. So what if he dawned of the infinite, but it was a different infinite? What if he kind of joining with infinite was this like little emotional beat of him going, maybe I will change things now, very carefully and very gently, which does ultimately lead him down the path of being more like Morazan, who was willing to change things and not do the one true timeline. So it's like the one true timeline idea seems to have been killed, but it was also like an emotional, empathetic version of, because he got his depression saved, because Chromie said, fuck, changing time, make you happy. He went, well, that felt good.
Yeah, that's Chromie
Hang
going
on a second.
against the Titans,
Yeah.
against the one true timeline.
Yeah, and you go, hang on, can I just do that? Because it would be pretty hypocritical if I said not do that. You know what? Fair enough. So I feel like that is actually it all wrapped up. But at the same time, the fact there's been zero consequence at all of them doing, oh, will we protect the one true timeline? Oathstone, power up, go! Then they're changing that. And then the Oathstone still been fine. There's no consequence.
Does anyone know what an Oathstone does?
We'll never find. No, we'll find out. No, I hope we never. Oh no. Anyway, the infinite is fine now. The infinite have dawned, but in a good way. Please be happy and clap and
Moving swiftly on.
yes.
Basically, I think.
Yeah. Which moving on, they've got the blue sorted out, the black sorted out, the bronze sorted out, the green's been sorted out in 10-2 here, and the only thing left then is the red, and they have nothing to do. And also the red's a little bit sorted out because Alex Straza. The finale will be Alex Straza's big realization of fuck the Titans. That'll be that. Or maybe coexistence with their ideals without being trampled on. Something like that. Which means we don't have a massive amount of red storyline to go through, especially now that Veronoth seems to be the key to Alex Straza's arc. You know, roommates and all that. So, like, I feel like them having a trust bond and then going, well, you know, Veronoth, I was thinking about it and you were right and I failed you and I will never fail you again. And then something, Mother Oathstone works again. Or the Mother Oathstone will work again because, remember the Mother Oathstone, by the way, because I barely do. Then they'll shut up.
Do you think they'll bother with that?
Yeah, they will, because it'll be because they need all of them, including Veronoth, to stand around the Mother Oathstone and raise their hands together, and then go Captain Planet or whatever. Like, no, Voltron would be too cool. You have to make the Dragon Megazord where they all stand on top of each other and breathe fire together, and it's a big
Beautiful.
it's a big 6-color or something like that. Together, unity, yeah, those things. So they'll need that moment because they probably have the cinematic already done for that.
Yeah.
So they have to make that work and they can't change that. So I imagine that being like a 10-2-5 or a 10-2-7 finale when Veronoth gets to sit down and Sarah's dead again or something and they've all fixed all their stuff. That kind of stuff.